The shadows are our domain, and we are its keepers. The Dark Angels. The Astartes, or better known as the Space Marines, were a creation of the 30th millennium, some 12,000 years before the current era Indomitus of the 42nd millennium. They are the pinnacle of genetic engineering, of physical and mental training, as well as indoctrination. The development of the Space Marines really kicked off around the year 550 of M30 with a project that was still in its early experimental phases. The initial attempts to create these superhuman warriors led to the creation of what became known as the Primordial Strain. These were essentially the first prototypes of what would later become the Legiones Astartes, but at this stage, the process was still rough and risky. They were still a development though over the Thunder Warriors that were their precursors. These were another line of super warriors that were prone to uncontrollable fits and rages. So amongst these Primordial Strain, almost none made it through the process intact, but they still however played a crucial role in shaping the early formation of the very first Legion, the forerunners of the Dark Angels. In the novel Saturnine, we get a glimpse of one of these early successful templates. This was a warrior known simply as Le2 or Lidu. Lidu was a product of the Emperor's and Urda's gene stock. Yes, that's Urda, who was essentially the mother of the Primarchs, and though it seemed like he vanished amidst the chaos of the Siege of Terra, in Warhawk, it is revealed that Lidu actually survived, eventually being captured and left to wait alone in an interrogation chamber. So this was the very first Space Marine to be known. Moving forward, we learn more about another significant early figure from the very first Legion, detailed in the Horus Heresy Book 9, Crusade. Abraxas Gen was one of those early functional prototypes that served as a bridge between the primordial experiments and the later Space Marines created with Primarch gene seeds. Specifically, he was created using the gene seed of Lionel Johnson. Gen's legacy is recorded in an ancient archive of the Imperial Palace, noting that he is among the first successful attempts at creating a true Astartes. In the same book, Crusade, we learn that the Emperor faced a serious challenge when creating the first Space Marines. The subjects for these early experiments had to be genetically pure and untainted, which was a tall order for Terra after countless atomic wars and genetic plagues. The Emperor sourced these recruits from defeated enemies and slave purchasers from nomadic clans, finding them in the least corrupted parts of Terra. Because of this, the earliest experiments of the members of the Dark Angels, the First Legion, were culturally diverse, reflecting Terra's fragmented state at that time. The First Legion became a melting pot, combining the Emperor's genetic mastery with the various surviving cultures of the Old Night. Many of these early recruits left behind their past identities, choosing instead to adopt names drawn from Earth's old legends like Gilgamesh, Heracles, Tarkon, and Hengist. This practice highlighted the Emperor's intent to forge something new from the ruins of Terra's Dark Age. According to Valdor, the birth of the Imperium, the First Legion's first recorded combat engagement was the first ever battle fought by the Legiones Astartes itself, and was during the Palace Coup at the end of the Unification Wars. The Dark Angels quickly gained a fearsome reputation in these earliest days, earning the title of the Uncrowned Princes from the other forces of the Emperor for their effectiveness and their presence in battle. So as early as the Third Siege of Antioch in the year 603 of M30, multiple hosts worked together across companies, often in small numbers. These early 9 hosts with 30 Astartes each were a testing bed for what would later become the Astartes core doctrines, the Principia Bellicosa. These hosts weren't really tied to specific companies or commanders, but operated throughout the Legion, advising and leading in battles. At one point in time, there were up to 18 hosts, which comes to a total of 540 Astartes, still in the timeline of the Unification Wars. And by the end of it, the First Legion had become the largest Astartes force, with a massive 10,000 warriors, while most other legions were just a few hundred strong. Their very first public appearance in full strength came at the Siege of Samarkand in the year 668 of M30, where the First Legion fought under the direct command of the Emperor himself. Facing 200,000 gene-forged Uduk-Hul warriors under the Great King of Akkad, the entire force of 10,000 Astartes, supported by units from 4 other legions, proved to be unstoppable. At this time, they were led by the Legion Master known as Hector Thrain. Why a Legion Master? That was before the rediscovery of the Primarchs, their sire. The Astartes' highest rank was that of a Legion Master, essentially their general. He rose to become a Grand Master later on, and one of the most influential figures in the Emperor's court. His advice held weight second only to Malcador and Horus Lupercal later on, making him a key figure in shaping early imperial policy. So the First Legion earned a reputation for death and doom amongst their mortal allies. The fear and superstition surrounding them led to the original title of them being the Angels of Death. During the Great Crusade, the First Legion took on the role of exterminators, tasked with eliminating threats too dangerous to face directly. They used forbidden technology like gene phages and rat waves to wipe out enemies deemed too nightmarish to handle in open battle. While other legions focused on colonizing and bringing worlds into compliance, the First Legion faced horrifying creatures and Xenos without hesitation. Many of their campaigns, like the classified battles of Bethelgen IV, remain shrouded in secrecy, which leaves gaps in their early history. However, this era came to a tragic end when the First faced a devastating battle against an unknown Xenos on the world of Canis Baelor, leading to an exterminatus that caused the life of Hector Thrain, the Grand Master. Not long after, the Imperium encountered the Rangda, a ruthless Xenos species, and in their initial campaigns at Advik Mor, the First Legion suffered heavy losses, with around 5,000 Astartes killed over just a period of 4 months. But the tide turned when their Primarch, the Lion L. Johnson, was rediscovered on Caliban. After reuniting with his Legion, the Lion tested their resolve by dueling a Terminator-clad captain without wearing power armor himself. Despite the odds, the Lion emerged victorious, earning the respect of his Legion. So the very first 500 warriors to fight at his side on Caliban would go down in history as the 500 Companions. So after establishing the Hexagrammaton, or the 6 hosts of the Angels of Death, Lionel Johnson reorganized the First Legion into specialized formations. Then the Lion led a newly mustered force of 20,000 legionnaires, which is a third of the Legion, on his own crusade. This shows that by the time the Lion took command in 846 of M30, the First Legion had expanded significantly, growing from 10,000 warriors at the siege of Samarkand in the year 603 of M30 to 60,000 by the time of the Lion's ascension. Within just a few years, he built his force up to 100,000 legionnaires, gathering them at the ancient stronghold of Gramarere. One of the Lion's first major moves was to strike at Carchasm, which had risen in rebellion against its Ultramarines garrison. The reorganized Dark Angels, now under the Lion's leadership, fought with renewed precision and effectiveness. They swept aside any lingering doubts about their past defeat on Canis Baelor, saving the Ultramarine allies from being overwhelmed. Things took a turn for the First Legion during the Second Rangdan Xenocide, where the Lion L. Johnson led his Dark Angels alongside Leman Russ and his Space Wolves against the Rangdan Xenos. As the first of the Astartes legions, the Dark Angels were one of the largest during the early to mid-Great Crusade. But in these brutal campaigns against the Rangda, the Dark Angels suffered catastrophic losses, with 50,000 battle brothers falling to save the Northern Imperium. This heavy toll was a blow for which the Legion would never really fully recover, leading them to lose their status as the most powerful Legion, or the most numerous. Despite this, the Dark Angels continued to grow, reaching their peak size just before the end of the Great Crusade, where they numbered around 200,000, a formidable force but trailing the Ultramarines, who stood as the largest legion with 250,000 Astartes. Then moving forward during the Horus Heresy, the Dark Angels were very far from Terra, engaged in campaigns on the Gordian League shield worlds sent by Horus as a distraction, which prevented them from directly joining the events unfolding there in Terra. The First Legion would face their very first engagement during the Thramas Crusade, where their 70,000 Astartes clashed with 100,000 Night Lords. While they ultimately achieved victory, it came at a steep price, with thousands of casualties on both sides. But the Night Lords lost more, between 30 to 40,000 warriors. The Dark Angels then continued their relentless campaign, winning battles like the one for the Zephat system, but at a great cost. They also suffered heavy losses in the Harrowing of Purin and the Second Battle of Davin. The First Legion also faced significant resistance from demons in the warp and coordinated distraction tactics alongside the Ultramarines to ensure that the Blood Angels reached Terra in time for the final siege. This included the line destroying the homeworlds of Horus, Fulgrim, Mortarion and Angron in order to draw out their forces out from the siege of Terra. Then after the Horus Heresy, when the Dark Angels returned to their homeworld Caliban, they were attacked by its planetary defenses. Forced to assault their own world and their own Astartes there allied to Luther, they discovered their brethren had turned against them, which was sort of a microcosm of the Horus Heresy itself, with the Dark Angels split into two factions. In a duel similar to the Emperor and Horus, Luther and the Lion L. Johnson fought, with Luther mortally wounding the Lion, and the former turning mad and being captured. The Dark Angels fleet then bombarded Caliban, and then the planet broke apart due to the combined assault and the appearance of a massive warp rift, reducing the planet into an asteroid field, with one large surviving segment of the world becoming known as the Rock, surviving as the place for the fortress monastery called the Tower of Angels. This internal betrayal stained the Dark Angels' honor, and the Legion has since kept the events a closely guarded secret, only known to a selected few in the highest echelons of their ranks. The war on Caliban led to the Dark Angels being significantly reduced in size, but the exact numbers aren't really specified in the lore, but we can guess that they were reduced to a few thousands. And so after their reduction in size, they followed the Codex Astartes that were brought forth by Guilliman, and they were broken into a number of successor chapters. Like other legions, the Dark Angels themselves were lessened into a chapter of 1,000 Marines, and even though outwardly they appear to adhere to the standard Codex organization with 10 companies, they still retain their unique elements. At the top of the chapter stands the Inner Circle, which includes officers outside of the Codex assigned numbers, including librarians, interrogator chaplains, and company masters. However, they are still suspected to be operating as an informal legion as of the current era, and the signs to this is in their pact, which is secretly known as the Unforgiven. Them and their successor chapters maintain strong ties with one another. Each chapter master is a part of the Inner Circle and holds the title of the Grand Master of the Inner Circle. The Dark Angels chapter master is the supreme leader of the Inner Circle, and thus the supreme leader of the entire Legion, with all members reporting to him directly for the hunt of the fallen and also for the defense of the Rock. Together, the Dark Angels and their 20 successor chapters form a sort of a legion of about 20,000 Astartes in total, trailing behind the sanguinary brotherhood of the Blood Angels. And now, with the resurrection of the Lion, many of the fallen angels, aside from the ones that serve chaos, have rejoined the Primarch and has become the Risen, and it seems that Lion would again reform the Legion formally, along with the Unforgiven. So, from the very beginning with Abraxas Gen to the early 9 hosts with 30 Astartes each during the Unification Wars and their public revelation with 10,000 and the Battle of Samarkand, we see the very first Legion grow in size, from the 60,000 during the time of the Lion's Ascension to the 100,000 in a few years' time, and peaking at 200,000 before the Horus Heresy. We also see their fallen numbers during the Heresy and the Great Betrayal at Caliban, and them ending as a chapter that leads an informal legion known as the Unforgiven of around 20,000 Astartes. And as of the current setting, the Lion has been resurrected. He has forgiven the fallen and has invited them to join him as well as the Unforgiven to now maybe form again the Dark Angels Legion. So, that is the story of the rise and fall of the Dark Angels. If you like this video, then watch this other one too, and if you want to browse for other sci-fi and Warhammer content, then check out our channel. So like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next few days. Till the next time, take care, boys.